Hi, friends. This is Caitlin. I am so excited to be back with you after a week with no voice. I'm sure you can still hear my voice is a little shaky, but we're getting there. So we're gonna jump in with some newness from Honeybee Stamps. This is my small order, but I'm trying not to overdo it for Christmas. So I grabbed the Make It Merry wax seal little things, melts, and this new snowflake wax seal stamper. I am obsessed with Honeybee's wax seal stuff, and we'll make a little seal at the end because this card came together really quickly. I am also in love with their new paper packs. The size of these is absolutely perfect. You can get 2 card fronts out of each one, and they're double-sided and they're beautiful. So this is the Make It Merry. I also have the Grain and Grunge and the Hocus Pocus ones that came out in the fall. I love them. I love them. I love them. I love them. If you've been on the fence, go for it. These paper pads are absolutely beautiful, and I can't wait to use these in tons of Christmas cards this year. I've yet to use up a pack of pattern paper, so my goal this year is to use up this pack. We'll see if I can do it. I don't know. Let's be honest, I probably won't, but it's okay. So I ordered the Bear Hug stamp set, and my little thank you card was also the Bear Hugs image, which is great because one of my kids will inevitably want to make a card with it, and I already have a card front stamped out for them. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's an amazing free way to support me and my channel, and I love having you here for crafty videos every Friday. So I'm going to start out by stamping my Bear Hugs image on some Copic Express It paper with my go-to alcohol-friendly ink, which is the Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink. And we're just going to stamp that a couple times. It is a fresh stamp. I do kind of rub on my stamps with my hands or my fingers when I first get them, but that's why I love my Misti, so that I can double stamp or triple stamp new stamps and it doesn't mess anything up. I am a terrible hand stamper. I don't know if I've talked about that a lot on here, but me and an acrylic block could do some damage. So before I started coloring, I decided I needed a color scheme. So I went ahead and picked out my papers that I'm going to be using. So I grabbed this green that has the tiny little pine branches and this really beautiful tone on tone kind of maroon red color. And I'm going to trim out 2 panels. I wasn't sure which one was going to be my smaller panel at first, so I ended up trimming them both to be A2 size card fronts, and then I decided that the red was going to be my outer layer, so I trimmed my green down just a little bit extra. I did a 1/2 inch from each, so it ends up being 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And then that's going to get put on top of the red panel, just like that. So we have a little mat. And I'm trimming off the teeniest little sliver because the white where it adheres to the rest of the paper pad was on that edge. And I hate that. It bugs me, drives me nuts. I decided for my sentiment, I really wanted to combine a stamped and a die cut sentiment. So I grabbed the Christmas honey cuts, which is something I got a year or 2 ago. I love this. It's 3 different layers. I'm only going to be using 2 of the layers. So I'm cutting the medium shadow layer out of my same Copic paper. I'm not going to be coloring it, but it really bothers me when the white edge around my image doesn't match any other white cardstock on my card. So I decided to just go ahead and cut that layer out from the same paper so that the whites match up perfectly. And then I cut the thinner Christmas one out of the red, a scrap of the red, the red cardstock that I had, and layered that right on top. And that way it ties in that red matte really nicely and everything kind of goes together. And then we will add a different sentiment in heat embossing up at the top of the green layer. So it'll complete the sentiment of have a very good Christmas, which is so stinking cute. So I decided to make my bear a little polar bear. And so I colored him in with some warm gray markers, keeping it super light, just enough shading that everything looks kind of nice and complete. Not enough to make him look like a gray bear. I really like using warm grays for polar bears because in real life polar bears have a kind of yellow undertone to their fur. And so I just like the way that that kind of reads on my coloring. Warm grays instead of cool. But if you have other grays, by all means use whatever grays, but he would also be super adorable as a brown bear. And I've also seen people coloring him in so that the bottom section is a sweater, so like a turtleneck instead of a scarf and then fur, and I just think that would be super cute as well. But in my mind, he's wearing a scarf on this card. So I shaded that all in. I'm going in with some super light warm gray, that 00, just to blend everything out. And I did add some really subtle shading under my little lights. And then I'm going in with my R20 to give him some little blush marks and his little ears. And then I colored in his star with some really light YR markers. They kind of read more gold than orange. And then I wanted to try to bring in some of the same kind of maroon tones from my red cardstock into my drawing or my coloring. So I grabbed my really dark R marker combo that I love, which is the 89, 59, 39. And then we'll add a little pop of a brighter red just kind of where the cables are of that scarf. Is that cables? I don't know, the stripes, those little stripes, the little knit endants, whatever those are. So as you can hear, I am, like I said, getting my voice back now. Our family has been dealing with sicknesses on and off through October, but something came through and decided to truly kick our butts at the end of the month. And so we are all still kind of recuperating. I feel way better now, but my voice is still iffy and I have a cough that I just literally can't shake. So it's a little frustrating, but it's definitely nice to know that we are on the mend. My kids are back in school. Everybody's okay. In general, we are a pretty healthy family, and things like this just remind me to be grateful for that. So you did just see me perform stamp surgery, and I know that I cut it like it was nothing and not a big deal. And to some people, you'd be like, oh my God, what did you just do? I took very sharp scissors and I chopped the Christmas off of the sentiment. So it says, have a very good Christmas, but we're providing our own Christmas letters. So I just cut it. And as long as you use a nice sharp scissors and you cut confidently, you will get a clean line and you can just smush them back together later and everything will be okay. I promise. It's scary. It was terrifying the first couple times I did it, but since then I've just dealt with it. It's not a big deal. Just make sure your stamp makes it back into your packaging and you'll be okay. So I am going in now with my piercing tool to clean up. I pressed down a little too hard on my embossing ink and my stamp when I did my embossing layer. And so I found that the easiest way to make sure that the holes are there in between those letters is just to take a little piercing wand and just kind of move any extra embossing powder around before you heat set it, and it's way more legible that way. So instead of having to stamp it all over again and waste a whole nother sheet of this paper, that was what I did, and I think it looks fine. So I attached my green panel onto my red panel with some double-sided tape, or my Tombow permanent mono adhesive. Guys, it's been a week. I apologize. But I'm so grateful for you and for you being here. So I attached my little bear into place with some liquid glue so I could zhuzh him around a little bit, and then I added that same liquid glue to my Christmas sentiment, and again so I could have time to shift it around. I wish that I hadn't trimmed my bear so short, because it bothers me that you can see the green next to the T, and if you think that I'm a psycho, I understand, but if you know what I mean, you are my people. That little sliver of green right next to that T, that should be white. And if I could do it over again, I would leave it longer, so just that part would be white. But it's okay. So I added some iridescent green flash, little glitter glue to all of these little lights just for a little extra sparkle. And this stamp set does have a coordinating die, but I did not purchase it, so I just fussy cut him out, and I did it, of course, slightly off camera because I'm like out of practice now. And so I had to trim that out of the footage. So because this card did come together so quickly, really as a little bonus, I wanted to share with you me making a little wax seal that I can add on to the envelope when this card is done and ready to go. This is my little bin where I keep all of my wax seal supplies. So you can see I have the tuxedo set from Honeybee Stamps as well, and I have a couple of the stampers now. I have the heart, the pumpkin, and the snowflake, you know, just the essentials. So I'm going to take 2 reds and 1 white on my little melter, and you can see when I started out, my fingers were on the metal. Don't do that. Make sure they're on the wood, because I cannot tell you the number of times that I have hardcore burned my fingers doing this. So in the past, I would use a candle. I saw Amy R. from Prairie Paper and Ink use a embossing heat tool, and it is an absolute game changer. It is so much faster, and you don't get any of the soot on the bottom of your melter. Oh my god, if you haven't done it that way and you want to try, please try it that way. It's so much easier. So I put down a silicone mat. You pour out your wax, put in your stamper, let it cool for about a minute, 30 seconds maybe, and then you could see the snowflake when you kind of held it to the light, but it wasn't standing out on its own. So I decided to try taking some of my Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white ink, which is what I use to not speckle, flick to make snowflakes, like little snow on my scenes. So I took that with a tiny brush and I kind of just dry brushed over my wax seal, and I love how this looks. I cannot promise that it's going to be like waterproof, or if it gets like wet in the mail, what will happen. I'm assuming it would stick because the stuff does dry down pretty good. But I mostly hand deliver my Christmas cards, so for me it will definitely work, and I think you should try it. So I hope you had so much fun today. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you for all the love on my last video with having no voice. If you managed to watch even a minute of that with just music, I cannot tell you how much it means to me that you're here. I love you guys so much. I hope you have an amazing week, and as always, happy crafting.